mice. I mean, get the band back together.
We didn't
It's
do
been a minute or two.
is it after 3 or is it on 3 or are we going backwards?
It's on
Oh,
two when you count down.
throw it back a little bit.
What do you mean? The 30 minutes of trying to figure out how to record wasn't enough?
Yeah.
Nobody needed to know that. We had it right the first time.
It's 2025. We're still running into tech issues.
Yeah, somehow.
At least we'll sound good. But yeah, so we're on. We are fully entrenched in draft season. Your favorite time of the year, Michael. You start prepping for drafts ever since the last draft finished, but haven't really had a chance to talk about kind of what the storylines are going to be with it coming up at the end of this month. I mean, semi excited with the Jets at 7, but I'm excited for this deep dive that you have because I don't know, besides like the 2 or 3 players that I keep reading articles that we're linked to, I don't know anything about this class, and I'm okay with that. But I know that you've got something prepared. You lead us here. You are a fearless leader. Take us through this hodgepodge of college kids that are going to start making millions of dollars.
So there's 2 ways of talking about the draft. We can either go through a mock that I've made because I'm a psycho and I do this every year, and I probably do the simulated mocks for the first round and then the Dolphins about probably twice a day because I'm an insane person.
Twice?
So, and I've been doing this since week 17. I didn't even wait for the season to end. So I can go through the mock, or we can talk about, specific players or specific teams. I'm sure you're going to want to talk about the Jets. I'm going to want to talk about the Dolphins. So I think a good way to do this is a couple players, maybe go through the top 10 and then talk about some teams in the teens and later picks. How does that sound?
Love it. Sounds good to me.
Broncos country.
So I'm not sure if you know this, but the Titans have the first overall pick.
It's only been talked about every day.
And the guy who is going to go number 1, according to basically everyone, I think he's a minus 2,000 favorite to be the first overall pick, Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. And I mean, consensus is very much in play here. I would say if he didn't go number 1, it'd be the biggest shock since Sonny Weaver Jr. drafted Vontae Mack in the movie Draft Day with the number 1 overall pick. So
nobody went to his birthday party.
He's gonna. I mean, there's reverse issues here with Cam Ward, where probably too many people go to his birthday party. Everyone apparently loves him everywhere he ever goes. So he's going to be the first overall pick. The issue here is I don't think Cam Ward's that good as a quarterback. Oof. And it's not just the Miami hate that I have deep in my heart, but
no hometown love for you.
It's in fact the opposite. As an FSU boy, that is not something I like. And the years I went to UM after graduating, it was literally the most annoying years UM has ever had for a football season. So it in fact increased my hate, not decreased.
Yikes.
So do you want to know about fit? Do you want to know about the player? Tell me what you want to know about.
What I want to know is if you woke up tomorrow morning and you had Mr. and Mrs. Titan call you. They said, "Hey, Michael, we need you to just take over the draft room. We fired everybody. We went 3-12. We don't know what we're doing. You're going to just handle our first pick." What are you doing with the Titans?
So this is very much something that when you make a mock from scratch, you think about whether it's what you think is going to happen or what you think should happen. Yes, what I think should happen is no quarterback should go in the first round this year.
Ooh, spicy.
So in comparison to last year, 5 or 6 guys went, and they were all justified for whatever reason. Even if you think Michael Penix isn't a day one starter, which he wasn't. They had Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. You could see the talent. The best quarterback in this draft is Cam Ward, and I'm not disagreeing with that. It's very clear from the on-field product he should be the first quarterback taken. The difference is we know how good of a quarterback he is because last year he did put his name into the draft when he was a quarterback for Washington State after a good but not great season, and he got something around a 5th or a 6th round draft grade. Flash forward, he takes his name out of the draft consideration, transfers to Miami. Miami plays in the ACC, which is a worse league than what the Pac-12 was. He went to a more talented team in Miami than what he had at Washington State. And all of a sudden, he's the first overall pick, going from a 5th round or 6th round pick to the first overall pick. I understand the concept of scarcity, but that should not be happening where he had an incredible season, but he's not a surefire number 1 overall pick. And, I think of when you're drafting a quarterback, do you want a guy who could be a starter or is more likely a backup and is entirely situation dependent? Or do you want a guy who can bust or boom? Because if you draft a backup with the first overall pick, you're getting fired anyways. So you might as well swing for the fences.
I guess, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, obviously, but I think the only thing I'm going to push back on is how many previous number 1 quarterbacks that went were like bona fide superstar. Like you have to take them because I don't feel like that's the talk around him. I do feel like it's the best of the bunch, so he kind of gets slotted up there rather than people thinking he is this generational. I mean, even when Trevor came out or Tank for Tua or whatever, like there was enough hype around those guys because they thought that was the real deal.
And I mean, for all intents and purposes, those guys were the real deal. They had just come off, undefeated or national championship seasons where they led their team, all the way. Miami didn't really do that.
No, I think Miami had a good year. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. To your point, I don't know if that propelled him into that stratosphere of quarterback.
Right.
It's clearly put him above Shador, but I don't know if that would have been too difficult to do now that he's projecting at middle of the round now?
Which also is insane, and we'll get to him. But, on Cam Ward, it's no doubt he's the best quarterback. The question is, do you really want to risk the number 1 overall pick on a guy who may not be a superstar quarterback?
Sure.
Are you okay with the first overall pick being a guy who is good but maybe never great?
Here's what I'll ask. If Cam Ward's in the NFL right now, he's a top what quarterback? 20?
Quarterbacks are so bad nowadays.
That's my point, though.
That's another thing I do. But probably about 3 times a year I rank every quarterback, and it's a who would you rather have ranking, not a who is the best. So I have I have Tua and Geno and Justin Herbert in the high the low teens, with Dak as 20. And,
okay,
let's
use Dak.
I don't think he'd be better than Dak Prescott. Right now,
for real?
No.
Wow.
I've seen.
Are you including Dak's contract?
Well, that's the thing. It's who would you rather have? I think I would rather have Dak with a huge contract than Cam Ward as the first overall pick.
Okay, so who's right below Dak for you? Would you rather have Cam Ward or
Like
Michael Penix Jr.
I would probably put like Cam Ward's a higher value than like Bryce Young. Like I think Cam Ward, I never understood the Bryce Young thing even when he was coming out. So like I would put Cam Ward ahead of Bryce Young. Yeah.
Okay.
And like Bryce Young I have as around like 22.
Okay.
So he's maybe a top 20 quarterback. And that's what you're getting with the first overall pick.
I guess when you put it like that, it kind of, I mean, it makes sense. I see where you come from here.
I mean, I get it, but who if you're Tennessee and you don't take Cam Ward, which again, I don't know if they're locked into it, but if that doesn't happen,
I would say they're locked into him. Like I said, it would be the biggest shocker if they don't take him at this point.
Okay.
One, they need a quarterback. Two, from all indications, if they are going to take a quarterback, it's going to be Cam Ward, which I would agree with. And, you know, the positional value, say you take Travis Hunter, who is probably the best player in this draft. He plays two positions. And whether or not you think he did that in the NFL, he did it every single snap he was on the field for Colorado. And here's the thing. He could be the best wide receiver in the league and the best cornerback. If he has whoever is the quarterback for Tennessee next year throwing to him, they'll still have suck and probably have the first overall pick again next year.
It's true. Maybe that's not a bad strategy. So, maybe you look at who the quarterbacks are next year.
So I get why he's going. It's just I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
But you know what? It's not my job on the line. I'm not getting fired if he goes number one.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Okay, so we've locked in. So the Titans have now relieved you of your job duties. You're no longer the Titans GM. Browns pick. Because if it's, there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on with the Browns over the last couple of years, but probably not a reach to say that the most dumpster fire organization right now in the league. Just with everything that's going on.
Honestly, this draft is very much the worst ran teams at the top.
Yes.
Big thing about it. The Titans 2 years ago had Mike Vrabel as their head coach, and I guess Ryan Tannehill and rookie Will Levis. So they had one of the certified backups in the league in Ryan Tannehill, and then a rookie quarterback, and one of the best head coaches in the league, and all of them are going to be gone next year. Right? Mike Vrabel is now the head coach of the New England Patriots, and everyone thinks the Patriots are going to have an upswing season because simply Mike Vrabel is there.
You also saw that they're not doing the Oilers throwbacks anymore, right?
Yeah. Which is
what are you doing? Like the best jerseys in the league.
Right?
Just from a marketing and money-making standpoint, not selling those jerseys is an idiotic decision.
Yeah, who buys new Titans jerseys? You only get the throwbacks.
This would be like the Miami Heat not doing the Vice jerseys. Oof. It's like it's printing money. It would be stupid not to do them.
Yeah.
So, Titans, horribly ran organization. I don't get it at all. The Browns, historically the worst franchise in football. Can either of you remember the last time the Browns were legitimately good?
I don't know about legitimately good, but I do remember because it was against the Jets when they made when they made the playoffs and they had that big it was the Bud Light promo where they had all of the cases of Bud Light around the city locked up, and then if they made the playoffs, they basically were just going to unlock all the padlocks, and it's like free Bud Light for the city. Like, do you remember that? Am I dreaming that, or did that happen?
I have vague memories of that. It's like it's a locked memory somewhere in the recesses of my mind.
Yeah, I thought it was more locked.
But the Browns trade for Deshaun Watson and give up every single pick they've ever had. They signed Deshaun Watson, who was, remember, in the midst of a multi-rape allegation case, and they gave him a fully guaranteed contract, the biggest contract ever in the history of the NFL. One, you just traded a bunch of picks for a guy who could have and was eventually suspended for almost an entire year. Two, after you traded for him, you gave him a gigantic contract that locked him into your franchise for, I think, 5 or 4 years. And now he's basically a sunk cost. And yeah, Browns are the second pick in the draft. I have them taking Shedeur Sanders simply because they need something. Yeah, they have arguably the best defensive player in the league who demanded a trade, but eventually signed an extension in Myles Garrett. They need something to revive this franchise. And, whether you think Shedeur Sanders is going to do that, he's something. Even if he doesn't play for the first year, it's hope.
Well, let me tell you about this small franchise in Cleveland that did this thing after their team was really bad. And I got it wrong. It wasn't a playoff win. It was their first win after their 0-17 season.
This is ringing a bell now.
Okay. I literally had to pull the article up right here. So they went 3 back-to-back seasons. They went 3-13, 1-15, 0-16. So then they basically had a little over a full year in between wins, and then they came off a 17-game losing streak. So then Bud Light hooked up with them, and they did all of these smart refrigerators, and it literally says on the front of it, when the Browns win, Cleveland wins. And the game that they won was Baker Mayfield beating the Jets for their first game back. And I do
remember this game.
I'm pretty sure the Browns were a wild card team that year or the year after, and that was like the hype of Baker before he left. But they were never going to crack that next kind of ceiling for the team. But yes, I do. That is a locked memory that just came back to me.
And during that time, they had back-to-back first overall picks.
Yes.
Think about that. You have a team that is so bad that they get the first overall pick and draft a future Hall of Famer, Myles Garrett, in 2017. And that improves their team so much that they get the first overall pick again, in which they take Baker Mayfield. That same Baker Mayfield that they tossed to the curb when they traded for Deshaun Watson. This is just a franchise that makes poor decisions over and over again.
So rough.
For drafting, and gambling is legal in Florida now. You can bet on the NFL draft. Bad franchises make bad decisions. And it's something that happens over and over and over again. So, with all that preamble, I already said it, but I have them taking Shedeur Sanders. Because, one, Myles Garrett seems like he's a terrible liar and basically gave the game away when he re-signed, saying he thinks they're going to do something at quarterback. Well, there's basically no one else on the market besides Aaron Rodgers. And Nick, I'm sure you would love to talk about the Aaron Rodgers experience.
I could take up 4 hours of your night talking about Rodgers, but go ahead.
So,
I'll dabble in a little bit, but
it seems like the Steelers might want to take a run on the blackout bus. What was it? The darkness retreat that Aaron Rodgers went on?
The darkness retreat.
It seems like they want to experience darkness like the Jets did. So the Browns are left with no quarterback. I mean, I usually look up depth charts when making, mock drafts. I didn't even look up for the Browns who their quarterback room is, because it's Deshaun Watson, but I can't imagine they would ever have him roll out there again. So
no, I think I mean, again, the Watson thing is kind of it's not a controversial. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. I think he's a terrible human being, but um, the Browns are on the hook for it's over $100 million at this point. It might even be closer to 150. They don't have too many options for what to do. So I think, like you said, when you're looking at how can you just turn the page on that franchise to just start something new, I do have to share one of the coolest, most interesting reads that I had when they were talking about before they had signed Myles Garrett to this mega contract, which he more than deserved. I mean, he's been one of the best defensive players in the league for a couple of years now. But knowing that you're on the hook for all this money with Deshaun, what if you just cut him? And if you're going to accrue so much dead cap, right? That is just going to eat up next season. You're not going to be able to sign any new players. So what if you just cut all of them? And you just went with the practice squad, and you just went 0-17, and you just picked up the number 1 overall pick. You lose all that dead cap money because I think as it currently stands, and I might have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be on the hook for his contract for I think it's 3 more years. And it's like, what do you do? Like you said, you're going to pick up Shador, and then you're sitting on this money for what? He's just going to sit the bench.
Because of how bad the original contract is with Deshaun Watson, there's a philosophy in, it's a business philosophy, but it's an everyday life philosophy. Don't compound mistakes with more mistakes.
My brother, he's on the hook. He's 30. The cap hit for him
2 years.
$36 million this year. Next year, it's $81 million because they void the last 3 years. You're not going to do anything. End of the year after that, it's still 53 because he's an unrestricted free agent. Oh my goodness! I would not want to be a Browns fan.
No,
Yeah, they're in a tough
you're
spot
in the
here.
depths of hell. Like you really are. So, Shador Sanders. Did either of you watch a lot of Colorado? They weren't that polarizing, right? No one paid that much attention to them during the
Not
season.
really. I mean, I tried to watch their games hoping for, something amazing, I guess, but was never really awed by them.
They were certainly on TV,
Right.
though. I'll tell you that.
Shador is, for his dad being Deion Sanders, who was the most athletic guy in every single room he's ever stepped into. Shador's kind of an immobile quarterback who sits in a pocket and gunslings. So, there are tools there. I think Shador is going to get to the NFL and get better. So, drafting him with the second overall pick, again, I wouldn't draft any of these quarterbacks in the first round, but if you're going to do it, you're giving hope to your fans. And, the very bleak conversation we just had, it seems like Cleveland needs a little bit of hope.
Yeah, that's fair. And now let's you could spend an hour on each of these teams, especially Cleveland. But I think that one of the more interesting, I just saw a meme today talking about the 2 QBs with the Giants signing now Russell Wilson, but also Jameis, and still having Tommy DeVito on the roster too. Surely they're not going to take a quarterback, right?
No, and if I was them, so this is another in the line of bad franchises where this is the franchise in the Giants that gave Daniel Jones a big contract when everyone in the world besides the Giants knew he was not good at playing the quarterback position. It seems like they have a couple options at quarterback. You just listed them. So, you know what? Get the best and most fun player in the draft. Travis Hunter is by far the most exciting and the best player in this draft. I think he's a better wide receiver than he is a corner at this point. And, he plays both in college. Pretty sure on a limited basis he can play both. Imagine, ready? Jameis Winston with his YOLO balls and his not caring about interceptions, throwing to Malik Neighbors, one of the fastest players in the NFL, and Travis Hunter. Like, talk about having fun. They're not going to be good, but talk about having fun.
I did see a meme that was like, if the Giants get Travis Hunter and Jameis is throwing, Travis just has to switch and play defense because he can intercept.
He's got both skill sets. He understands how to tackle, which is a key skill for a wide receiver in a Jameis offense.
That's awesome. He's like, oh, broken play. I know exactly where he's going to throw this. Actually, he's going to get it. That's funny.
So the Giants need a lot. From my count, they need a couple offensive linemen, a tight end, an actual long-term solution at quarterback. But none of those are, number 3 in the draft worthy. So you might as well get the best player available.
Yeah, that's fair. Plus, like you said, sell a ton of jerseys, especially in New York. Like, he'll put butts in seats regardless. I did see. Go ahead.
Just from, you kind of touched on it, but a marketability standpoint, Travis Hunter was a star at Jackson State. He was a star at Colorado. Imagine him playing in New York for the Giants. That's going to be just everywhere he goes, he's going to be like the most famous person. And, the NFL, I know they're doing quite well and, don't need any additional help, raising the NFL brand. But having a guy like Travis Hunter, who is chronically online as well, that's going to be really good. He's a friggin' Twitch streamer while also dominating on the football field. You can't.
I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
He's
bring in our resident Twitch streamer.
That's kind of wild. Hold on. We'll report back.
Yeah. So, you want to keep growing the game. A guy like that in New York would be amazing for the brand.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I did see, I don't know who it was out of the Patriots, but somebody in the Patriots camp was talking about if they had gotten, well, and actually I should preface, I know that the owners meeting down in Palm Beach was happening over the last couple of days. So they're having a lot of these media questions and interviews where these quotes are coming out, but somebody from the Patriots camp was saying if they were to land Travis Hunter, they would only want him to focus on one position. Is that something that you think that like long term he would benefit from, or do you think just like be the athletic freak, do both things while you can?
So this is really a question of what do you want out of a player. Long term, yeah, it would probably be better if he focused on one position. He is. If he was just a wide receiver, he'd be the best wide receiver in this class. If he was just a cornerback, he'd be the best cornerback in this class. Being both, he's probably still the best of either. I think his skill set translates more to a wide receiver at this point, especially with how complex defensives has gotten in the NFL, where, for as much success as Colorado had, they were not running, something that required hieroglyphics translations
that's
on
fair.
The defense. It was very much let's out talent these people. And then that's why when they ran into a team like Nebraska, who, made a bowl for the first time in 10 years, but wasn't out talented anyone, they really had a hard time. So I think he can do it. I think the ideal split would be primary wide receiver and then, sometimes being a corner.
Like situational, maybe?
Yeah. And, it probably would make more sense the other way around because, you want a corner on the field at all times and, you want a weapon on offense. But his skill set kind of requires the other way around. And, it would take a creative and open mind to kind of figure out how to squeeze him in for both. I'm not sure that's the Giants, and that entire regime might be getting fired next season. But
they don't have the best track record.
Yeah, but you know what? Just because you're not good at something doesn't mean you shouldn't take the risks, right? When it's clearly what you should do.
Preach. There you go.
I think. Go ahead.
If you have two aces, you obviously should split them when you're playing blackjack. It may not feel good, and you may be doubling your money on the table, but it's clearly what you should do.
Who are you going to say, Turrel?
I was going to say that I think the transition from college to pro for this whole playing both sides of the ball, like, you're not covering those Nebraska receivers anymore. Now you're soloed up against Mike Evans. Like,
that is exactly the person I have in my head. Thinking about someone he's he's 6 foot tall, 188. Like, you're telling me Mike Evans isn't gonna want to jump ball against him?
Yeah, and so again, not that he can't do it. I would love to see it. I'm sure the kid has the talent and the athletic ability. Like, he's proved that. But it is a little different because the pace of the game goes up a notch. The skill level of the players goes up a notch or two. Like, so you're gambling in a different pit here.
And Turrel, I think that concern is exactly why situationally corner and then primary wide receiver would be ideal for him, because, yes, defending Mike Evans would be horrible for a rookie, any type of rookie, regardless how good they are. But, it would really suck for opposing defenses having to defend Travis Hunter on offense because he's that good of a player.
Yeah.
Fair point. I fear here, as we're getting into the fourth pick, we are starting to get into lineman territory, which is not my forte at all. So I'm gonna need some help here because some of these guys have been talked about with the Jets, and I don't know who I should be excited about with the next kind of run of guys.
So I think we can basically go through the Patriots pick, the Jaguars pick, and the Raiders pick very quickly because I think all of them are quite obvious.
Okay. So
the Patriots, I have them taking Abdul Carter, who is by far the best pass rusher and arguably the best player. It's kind of, are you a line of scrimmage guy or are you a skilled position guy? If you're a skilled position guy who likes the flash, you think Travis Hunter is the best player. If you're a line of scrimmage guy and you think, the point of attack is the most important in football, you think Abdul Carter is the best player. It's that close. This is a guy who absolutely wrecked for Penn State last year and basically propelled their defense into the Final Four of the playoff. He is an obvious pick here, and the Patriots need him. And, we talked about Mike Vrabel earlier, how dumb of a decision it was for the Titans to fire him. Well, it was a great decision by the Patriots to hire him. And he's going to build a team that is very point of attack focused, line of scrimmage, and Abdul Carter is going to be that guy.
Okay.
So moving on to the Jaguars, who, the Browns are certainly the king of bad franchises, but the Jaguars somehow ruined the talent of Trevor Lawrence, who was by far the most can't-miss prospect in the past 10 years, and they've had zero success with him. So,
hey, they made the playoffs.
And how many playoff wins do they have? One, I think.
One, yeah. I don't know.
with a surefire guy.
That's it.
They got that new coach now, though. Duval. They're set.
I will say, I know you're laughing. People are legitimately excited about him though, because of how he's doing in Tampa.
What was that? Every head coach who gets hired, I hope is successful, with the sole exception of the Jets. Sorry, Nick. So,
that's okay.
I hope he's good for the sole reason of I want these weirdos in Jacksonville to start saying Duval that way when it's clearly wrong.
I'm gonna need a little clip of that too.
The whole stadium. It's the new
Honestly,
Jaguars
if
chant.
you said that in a stadium, it probably would sound good. But
Yeah, I was gonna say you're
standing
clowning
alone at a
now,
podium.
so that's gonna be like the #1 commercial when the Jags win the Super Bowl next year. And they're gonna have a whole stadium saying it just like that
With a Bud Light.
with the Bud Light in Cleveland. Yeah.
So I have them taking Mason Graham. He's a defensive tackle out of Michigan. And I don't know if you guys remember how good Michigan's defense was when they won the national championship. But my favorite stat from that season was until week 9 or 10, Michigan had not faced a first and goal.
What?
That's crazy work.
Okay.
Wait, whoa. What?
Yeah. You have to let that sink in. Think about it. So
That's crazy work.
when you get the ball within 10 yards of the end zone, you know the concept.
That's not what my question was. It was like
they had not faced that. Yeah, they had not faced that till the 4th section of the season. Until after basically October, they had not faced a first and goal.
That's crazy.
No, and the main reason for that, I saw that stat and I texted my gambling chat and said, Michigan's winning the national championship this year. You can just bet on that.
Spoiler, they did
and
not.
They did.
This is
you were talking about 2 years ago.
2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
This was a sophomore, Mason Graham, who was dominating the point of attack.
But they were sign stealing. That doesn't count.
Everybody sign steals.
They were in sign stealing against Ohio State, Alabama, and then Washington, and they ran through them.
Fair enough.
And then, even after Jim Harbaugh leaves, they get basically an entirely new offense, and they suck on offense. They still beat the eventual national champion because of guys like Mason Graham, who basically obliterates the interior of an offensive line no matter where he plays. So, again, if you're a point of attack line of scrimmage guy, you love Mason Graham. I saw one reporter from down here basically doing a film review on a couple prospects, and every time he says something about a prospect, I text my chat and say, this guy's a surefire stud if he doesn't like him because he's so bad at evaluating. So he said, I don't think Mason Graham's going to go, or I don't think Mason Graham is worth the 13th pick or the Dolphins pick. And I was just like, he's going in the top 5, so we don't have to worry about that. So that's an easy one. I think he's going to go there. He's not going to help Trevor Lawrence in any way, but maybe if you're not having to come back from down 21, you might be able to play quarterback a little better.
Fair.
Can't argue there.
Does make it a little easier there.
And then the Raiders at 6. Some people think that this is going to be Ashton Genty. I don't think Pete Carroll, who is, he may like to run the ball, but he's not an idiot. I don't think they're going to draft a running back in the top 6.
Yeah, with certainty, I don't know.
He's going to throw it on 4th and goal. So he doesn't want Ashton Genty.
And now, again, all of that makes sense. But tell me that Genty in black and silver wouldn't look so clean.
But listen, the cleats light up. The dude's great, okay? That doesn't mean he needs to be taken with the 6th overall pick as running back.
Because I'll take him at 7. I don't care. I'm sure he can pass a little bit. I'm sure he can block a little bit. We don't know. I haven't seen him do it.
But I don't have him taken by the Raiders. I have them taking Will Johnson, who comes from the Michigan defense, and he is incredible. Can be a solo corner shutting down the #1 right now. And when you think of the Pete Carroll Seahawks, you think of Russell Wilson, you think of Marshawn Lynch, and then you think of a dominant secondary.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I think this is where
Sam
they
Chancellor,
go.
Richard Sherman. Oh yeah, the Legion of
It's
Boom.
I think these top 6 picks are so obvious, but what do I know? I just do a ton of drafts every single day.
Hey, that's why you're on here, because they're obvious to you. I don't even know who half these guys are.
And then we have your beloved Jets, Nick.
My New York Football Jets.
And
now, I have to. I'm sorry. I have to use this as the segue for kind of what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a franchise that doesn't know what they're doing. But to be fair, brand new QB in Justin Fields, brand new head coach, brand new GM. So to me, the that ever present positive feeling that somehow sucks me in at the beginning of every football season is like, could they turn the page? And I was excited about the Rodgers thing just because I thought it would have worked. Knowing of how much of a diva and all this sort of stuff, and knowing it's in New York and it's all media, I think that was destined to fail from the jump. But kind of going into it, it's kind of nice not worrying about. We're not going to make the playoffs, and there's no one talking about it, which is really nice. So I don't know who. Hit me. I mean, who are we looking like we're going to have?
But before we get to the pick, can I ask you what was your favorite moment of the Aaron Rodgers era in New York?
I mean, sarcastically or actual favorite moment? Because
let's give one for both.
So it is the Sunday, or it is the Monday of Labor Day, a year and a half ago, on that fateful night, and I made dinner. I had the TV ready. I was like, it is Monday Night Football to start the season. Like, a first game of Rodgers, it's going to be great. He comes out with that beautiful red, white, and blue flag, and I'm like, oh my God, the stadium is jumping. And I was ready to like swear off football after that third play. Ready to just be like, I honestly didn't watch the game. I turned it back on when they went to overtime, and then we ended up winning on the punt return. But it was like, what's the point? Like, we're a cursed franchise.
Cue Lincoln Park, directed by Michael Bay.
And it was
Nick,
it was awful.
I can't believe. So it's so funny that literally his first moment as a Jet is his most memorable, because that same day I was coming home from a wedding. I was on a plane at LaGuardia, and it got delayed for 6 hours.
Jeez.
And we were on the ground for 6 hours, so we had to deplane 4 hours in and then reboard. And the only reason I didn't lose my mind is because, thank God, I had TVs and I got to see Aaron Rodgers tear his Achilles.
Oh, you're a sicko. No, I think to answer the other half, like, it's actually kind of funny because you go back and you look. I just want to pull this up real quick because I want to make sure I get this right. Like, there were some crazy, and I say crazy, but crazy good stats that have come out of the last 2 years. So Rodgers this year played all 17 games. Obviously, won 5-12. It's fine. He had the third most single-season passing yards in Jets history. 5-12. 38-97. So okay. So we've only had one 4,000-yard quarterback, Joe Namath. It was 4,007. He threw 28 TDs and 11 interceptions. Like, that's a respectable number. With a quarterback rating of 90.5. So all of those things are fine with me. I think if you just bottled that up and didn't have any of that extra BS, I think he would have been kind of not fondly, but I think you would look back and like, yeah, we swung and we missed, but it didn't cost us. We weren't the Browns, right? It didn't cost us years or half a decade to be able to close that chapter. But it wasn't, right? You did have the extra stuff. You had the media circus. You had him bringing all of his friends over. And while Devontae Adams had a good year, but like we still have Lazard on the roster. What are we doing? All in, it just basically became like the Aaron Rodgers club, and all of his pals just got to come to New York and play on this team. And I don't blame some of these other guys for leaving or wanting to get traded because like who wants to do that? So good. Close the chapter. Like I don't love Fields, but it's something to root for. I think he'll be fun to watch, and that's enough for me. Like just let us be down 28-0, but I'm excited to see what is Fields going to do. I don't know. So better than Rodgers.
So with a new GM, a new head coach, and entirely new leadership, I think they go with a safe pick. I think they go with an offensive lineman. The first offensive lineman taken. So I have them taking Armand Membu,
Great.
an offensive tackle out of Missouri. And he is your, new age, super athletic, can get out in the run game. He's a right tackle. He's not a left tackle. But that's fantastic because the Jets have a left tackle. They drafted one last year. So this pick, it's not sexy. You're going to watch it on draft night and go, okay, cool. But this could actually be a pick that helps build an offensive line that can support a good young quarterback in a year or two if you get lucky enough to draft a good one.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we're returning 4 out of 5 of our linemen. But I do like the lineman pick, knowing that like Elijah Vera Tucker's going into the last year of his deal. So, are you worried about potentially re-signing somebody? But the only other name, because I have the PFF one pulled up here. The only other 2 names that do get brought up, is it worth going after Tyler Warren, who's supposedly the best tight end, knowing that our tight end room is very thin, or is it worth trying to go after Will Campbell, who's another lineman? Your thoughts?
I think Will Campbell is the best offensive lineman in this draft. I also think that the NFL, when it comes to offensive linemen, gets scared away for stupid things like arm length. That Will Campbell measured in at below average arm length. And,
He's got little arms. What's the problem?
In the NBA, your wingspan matters because, you're dunking, you're shooting, you're, defending with your arms. If you watch Will Campbell, there is nothing on his film that shows that his arm length is an issue. And, measurables, when they're like that, when they're below average or above average, it shouldn't be used to justify a reason you don't like someone. It should be used to confirm something you've seen on film.
Personally, I would love to have like a T-Rex at right tackle. Like, see what you can do to get around him.
With Will Campbell, I think people are going to get scared of him and think he's a guard when he's clearly a right tackle. He played left tackle at LSU. And, LSU has underperformed for 3 years in a row. They had Daniels for 2 years and did nothing with him. And then they have Garrett Musburger, who could be the number 1 overall pick next year at quarterback. But that wasn't the offensive line's issue. The offensive line was good the whole year. There's about 3 guys in this draft from LSU's offensive line who's probably going to go in the first 100 picks.
Okay.
But, people are going to get scared of him. Will Campbell, I have him going 9 to the Saints. It's 2 picks away. But he's not an athletic freak. He's just a damn good football player. I can see the Jets saying, we want an athletic freak who's going to be able to dominate, not just be a good player. Which, you're drafting at 7, you're drafting in the top 10. I understand the rationale, but, good franchises aren't afraid to take good players.
Ooh, you don't have to call them out like that. My goodness. But you're saying I should be excited then. You're saying that Membu would be that's a solid pick.
Membu is a solid pick, and he's not some scrub. He's not a bust guy.
Oh my God,
he's just he is a lower floor, higher ceiling guy. That doesn't mean his floor is the basement. He still will be a good player. It's whether is he going to come in and dominate week one? Probably not. That's extremely hard for an offensive lineman to do. A rookie offensive lineman, there's very few come in and dominate immediately.
Okay, sure. I feel good about that.
Are the Jets going to be contending in the next year or two?
No.
So what's the rush? Take a guy with a higher ceiling who could develop into a star right tackle, whatever that looks like.
we haven't had one of those in a while. Panthers at 9. I guess just the NFC South because the Saints are Panthers at 8. Sorry, Saints are at 9.
So
what do you think?
Panthers at 8. I have them taking Turrel McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. He is the highest rated or highest ranked sole wide receiver, and I have to say that because Travis Hunter would be the highest, would be the best wide receiver if he was just a wide receiver. Yeah. But kind of in the mold of a Landon, a Drake London, a bigger guy, great hands, not going to burn anyone down the field, but a good player. The Panthers have doubled down on Bryce Young being their franchise quarterback. You can agree or disagree with that decision, but that is the decision. So since that's the decision, they should be drafting a guy who is going to help that quarterback be the best version of himself. And Turrel McMillan is exactly that.
Yeah, I just to kind of piggyback off that, like you had said, knowing that they have Xavier Legette too, who was so cool and the best quote machine ever in the league. I do think that's a cool balance for them to have. Now, is that is the wide receiver their biggest gap? Is there someone else that they could use, or is that like they need that? They need that help with them.
So when you think about a wide receiver, you kind of have to think about an offensive weapon. They have, Chuba Hubbard, who broke out last year. So Ashton Genty doesn't really make sense. Then it comes down to a debate about whether you'd want to take a tight end that high. And, there's the conventional wisdom of you don't draft tight ends high because, one, tight ends usually take a longer time to develop into impactful players. And two, the highest paid tight end, I believe, is George Kittle. He makes about $15 million a year.
$15,000. I'll take him.
Yeah. Maybe $15,000, every 15 minutes.
Oh, well.
But, a wide receiver. What was the contract that Jamar Chase just signed?
Ooh, a lot.
I should know this.
Yeah, wait a second.
Oh.
Sorry to send you to Google real quick.
Nah, I can get this pulled up.
He just sent a 4 for 161.
So
he's paying
wide. Yeah, over $40 million. So
yes,
just thinking about positional value, is Turrel McMillan going to be Jamar Chase? Probably not. But you don't get the opportunity to draft wide receivers like this, because if you don't draft a good wide receiver, you never get one. You will never get one in free agency because all of them stay because they sign massive contract extensions. Or you have to trade a first-round pick and then give a guy a huge contract, kind of like Tyreek Hill 4 years ago.
The T. Higgins saga of this year.
Yeah, and even T. Higgins eventually re-signed with the team that drafted him.
That's a good point.
So You know, if you want a wide receiver, you need to draft one, because if you don't, it's going to cost you so much more in the long run. And
Okay.
wide receiver, excluding Travis Hunter, is another position that it's not loaded this year. Turrel, McMillan, and maybe one other player is going to go in the first round at wide receiver. So, you're getting the best one, and he's clearly the best one. Maybe he should be, in another draft, be a team in the teens, but each draft is different. Each draft is a snowflake. You can't think about it in those terms. So you draft him at 8, and you don't think about it. Xavier Legette got drafted last year. Can you tell me what pick he was?
Who?
Xavier Legette, their other wide receiver.
30. No. Wait a second. It's the Panthers. No. Was he first round?
I follow the draft religiously. I can't tell you whether he was the last pick in the first round or the first pick in the second round. But you know what you do know? The dude is awesome. He's fun to watch. He's a good player. And that's all that matters when you're drafting.
That's fair. Well, now that you got me curious. No, he was the 32nd pick. He was the end of the first round.
So very last one. All right.
So we're not even a year since then, and we couldn't tell you definitively until we looked it up. So
yeah, true.
If next year at this time, Turrel McMillan had a great season, no one's going to care you drafted him 8 instead of 20.
Okay. So that's not bad for the Panthers then. What do we got next? Saints?
We talked about it a little bit for the Saints. I'm taking Will Campbell. We had a good discussion about him with the Jets, whether to take Membu or Campbell. Campbell might start as a guard, move over to tackle as he progresses, but he's a damn good player. He's still a top 10 pick. He's a plug and play guy. Any team that drafts him just got a very good starting offensive lineman.
Okay. Seems like exactly what they need.
Not to tell you how much I like him, but about halfway through the college football season, I did place a small bet on him being the number 1 overall pick because that's how good he was. But then his arms turned out to be short, so now he's going to be the 9th pick.
Hey, Ash, look, you can't fix short arms.
And then to round out the top 10, we have the Bears, and I have them taking Kelvin Banks Jr., the offensive tackle from Texas. So first, one thing to remember about the draft is the NFL is basically struck with early onset Republican. Okay. So they are the definition of run the damn ball. Every team overdrafts offensive line. Okay. So if you think there's going to be only 1 or 2 offensive tackles taken in the top 10, you are simply wrong. They get overdrafted every year. And, Calvin Banks Jr., he's a good player. He's another guy who plays offensive tackle. He probably can play left tackle, but definitely right tackle. And you know what? The Bears are in the rare position of having found and drafted a franchise quarterback for being able to draft a single offensive lineman that's still on their roster. So hopefully this breaks that streak and gives them another guy. They just spent a ton of free agency and trade capital on improving that offensive line. I don't think it stops there. I think they keep going because Caleb Williams hasn't been spectacular, but he is the real deal. He has the talent. But you can't throw when you're getting tackled in 1.1 seconds.
That's fair. There's 2 questions. Turrel, anything you want to add? There's 2 questions I have, and they're more projections. but I want to open the floor first.
I do. Quick question. I think I know where you're leaning just based on how you described him, but I'm gonna pull it back a little bit. Would you rather have Caleb Williams or Cam Ward?
Ooh.
Oh, this isn't even close. I would rather have Caleb Williams on, I think he has, 2 or 3 years left on his contract, than a rookie contract Cam Ward. The talent isn't even close. Another thing to think about, Caleb Williams came out after 3 years in college.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Ward is a 5-year senior. So you're not actually getting that less developed of a player. You're actually getting a player who's had less of NFL experience, is only a year younger.
Cam Ward's 27 years? I'm not. I'm kidding, but he is. Yeah,
that's his tight end. I don't know if you saw the Miami Pro Day, but they have the oldest player, the oldest non-punter kicker in college football. He's a 9-year tight end, and he, for his 40, jogged it.
Didn't even sprint. Do something else, man. Come on.
What? How do you do that?
You keep in red shirt injury. You just keep pushing.
No, the jogging the 40. That.
No, like, you're not gonna. No, who's gonna get drafted?
So why go?
To be fair, I mean, if it hasn't happened by now, it's not gonna happen.
Fair.
You get to show your kids that. He gets to show his grandkids right now. Hey, guys,
yeah, I was in the combine. Dad, why are you running so slow? Well, you see,
I was old.
Between COVID and red shirts, and I didn't take my ibuprofen that morning.
I didn't stretch. So the two first off, flawless. I mean, that was beautiful, right? That was better than you could have had on a website. But the two things I have for you going forward, which franchise is most likely to just drop the ball here and totally whiff it and pick the wrong player?
So I think there's a scenario where the Browns are an obvious pick, just because.
You're going to say the Browns.
I'm sorry to pile on, but no matter who they pick, there's an argument it's the wrong pick, and that's just because of the situation they're in with the. So here are their three options, because we all know Cam Ward's going number one, like we talked about. He's going to go number one. It would be a shock if he doesn't. So they can have Shedeur Sanders, the number 2 quarterback in the draft, Travis Hunter, who is, like we talked about, extremely dynamic, or Abdul Carter, who is the best pass rusher. In each of these scenarios, tell me which one you feel best about. You draft Abdul Carter, you put him next to Myles Garrett, and you have this nasty pass rush, but your offense can't score anything. And you're losing games 7-21, 7-14.
It's better than this.
You draft Travis Hunter, who is so exciting. He'll probably look great in any jersey he puts on, and he'll sell a ton of jerseys. But on the Browns, he's definitely playing both ways, because are they really going to tell him he can't on a team that absolutely is terrible?
No.
So on offense, they'll have either the corpse of Deshaun Watson or Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett. Not a great situation there.
No.
Or you take Shedeur Sanders, who is very raw and who might not be a star, and definitely is not a star right away. And you put him on this team that doesn't really have a lot of weapons, as a below average O-line. And it's not a good situation for young quarterbacks. One of the biggest things with quarterback success is what team you go to, whether you're set up to succeed. Both Cam Ward and Shedeur, wherever they go, they're probably not going to a great situation. And that's because this draft particularly is top heavy with bad franchises who's made bad decisions recently.
So then my second question, who has the number 1 overall pick next year?
So it's easier to tell you who will not have the number 1 overall pick.
Okay.
So the Jaguars, I would be shocked if they had the number 1 overall pick. Just because Trevor Lawrence should be good enough where you're never losing 14, 15 games.
Duval.
Should be.
Duval.
Is critical. The Patriots will not have the first overall pick.
Okay.
Mike Vrabel is too good of a head coach.
Giants.
It all depends on, I'm not even kidding, who they decide is their starting quarterback. Because Russell Wilson has 7-10, 8-9 written all over him. So that's not the first overall pick bad.
No.
Jameis Winston, as we all know, has the potential to get you the first overall pick.
Hey,
it's going to be fun
the
entire time. One of my favorite things I've seen online is like the early 2000s rock music playing over a picture of Jameis saying, imagine the stat line, 4,500 yards, 47 touchdowns, 38 interceptions, 3-14 record.
That's entertaining, though. I would watch those highlights.
Honestly, my man shouldn't have got the Lasix or whatever. He should have kept it Squinston.
Squinston.
He should have kept it Jameis Squinston, dude. But seriously.
Well, another one of my favorite things I've seen is there's going to be a Week 14 game or Week 14 on Red Zone where Jameis Winston and Malik Neighbors are just lighting up some team, and you're going to think that they're not terrible.
Oh,
I'm going to mark this in my calendar and wait for this Week 14 Red Zone here.
There's a very good chance I may be drafting Malik Neighbors on the fantasy team just because I know he's going to have 1,000 yards. That's all they're going to do is give him the ball. Okay, if it's not New York with Jameis, so then it's between Cleveland or Tennessee again.
So I don't think Tennessee is going to be it just because it's really hard to get the number 1 overall pick twice in a row. Like, you have to be like next level terrible to do that.
Yeah, you got to be the Browns.
The Browns, always a candidate, always. I don't think the Raiders. I don't think the Jets. Panthers, I could see. Let's say things don't work out in Dallas, and Dak is never the same.
I didn't think about that.
And CeeDee Lamb is now pissed, and he's not trying very hard. I could see the Cowboys having the first overall pick. And then the rest of the NFL, it's like it would have to be shocking, like a complete meltdown for that to happen. You know, sorry to one of my best friends, Brandon, who's a Seahawks fan. I think the Seahawks are a candidate for dark horse for first overall pick, just because you trade away the quarterback who's had success with. You bring in a guy who we all know is actually terrible in Sam Darnold.
I would know better than most, yes.
I mean, the Vikings just went like, 3-4 losses this season?
System quarterback, man. Tom Brady's a system quarterback.
Turrel, if I gave you like 6 months to train, I'm pretty sure you could have done that with the Vikings.
That's bold. I appreciate it, though.
Like you for Super Bowl, though.
Don't make me get my cleats out the closet here.
So it's simply because, like, if their head coach, Mike McDonald, simply is not a head coach. You know, some guys are defensive or offensive coordinators, and that's the best they can be. a good recipe for getting the first overall pick is getting rid of your starting quarterback and having a bad head coach. So I can see it happening. And, their offensive line is not good. So Sam Darnold behind a bad offensive line with a coach that might not be good. Sounds like a first overall pick team to me.
I like it. That's a hot take. I love that. I think we're going to leave it there because I want to have you back on after the draft so we can definitely see which team didn't follow Michael's Bible and is definitely going to be getting that first overall pick next year. But thank you. Thanks for hopping on, pal. Thanks for getting to share your wisdom with us. I feel like I went to class. Like I feel like I'm smarter now. I can now go to the water cooler tomorrow at work and talk about the draft in ways that I could not today.
Going into the office in 2025?
My brother, I'm a teacher. All we have is water coolers. But
all right. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. It's great to be back on. It's a while that we've done this, and I'm glad you're doing the pod again. It's been a long time, and when I saw the logo come up on I think it was Spotify, I was like, "What is this? How did this happen?
What is this?"
Yeah, it's been a labor of love, but it's been a good time. And I get to do stuff like this, so we got to catch up on how that bracket's looking with St. John's not in it.
We're not going to talk about that.
We'll save that for another.
We're not going to talk about that. It was hopeful. I didn't put any money down on it, so not super upset. But
you just put my name on the bracket pool.
Yeah.
That had that, so now you're going to get the win, which is awesome. But I don't feel good about it, is what I'm saying. But congratulations. But no, that's a wrap, man. We'll catch you guys next time.
Absolutely.
I don't know how, like you said, add the share drive, whatever.